Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, a massive week one matchup for Billy Napier, the Florida Gators, as they host the Miami Hurricanes. And look, we've talked about this game extensively, not only the last couple of days, but really the last couple of weeks. And a lot of people are breaking down this football game. And a lot of the conversations that you kind of hear around this football game is kind of just from a personnel standpoint, looking at Florida, looking at Miami, looking at the players on the football field. And look, that is the first place you go when you're trying to predict and kind of look at a matchup. That being said, I think there are a lot of other storylines that are at play in this football game. And I think most notably, Austin Armstrong going into year two as the defensive coordinator. And this is something that for the Florida Gator fans who, been rocking with the boys the last couple of weeks and months, we've talked extensively about this. You go back to 2023, there were obvious growing pains within this Florida Gators defense. Not only is Austin Armstrong, I believe, the youngest defensive coordinator at the Power 5 level, he wants to run an extremely complicated defense with the Florida Gators defense in 2023 that was extremely young, starting multiple true freshmen through the duration of the 2023 season. I think one of the conversations to have is one, we kind of have a feeling that there's going to be some just player development, right? These young guys who are true freshmen or sophomores, they're going to get better going into year two or year three as college football players. But I think more importantly, this unit as a whole might take a massive step in the right direction because they better understand this complicated Austin Armstrong defense. And why I think this is, such a fascinating conversation to have around this football game is, look, you look at Miami on the offensive side of football, there's a lot of new, right? Cam Ward, a quarterback that I've been very vocal, I believe in, heading into 2024. But it is game one on the road in one of the most hostile environments that you'll see in the country with a new center, with some new pieces on the outside. There are some reasons to believe that there might be some growing pains for this Miami Hurricanes offense. Can Austin Armstrong in this complicated defense, with the defense understanding a little bit more what Austin Armstrong wants to do, can they capitalize on some of that new year or game one in the swamp to kick off the college football season? I think this is a fascinating storyline. And you look, kind of historically, this kind of bears out to be true. As a Michigan fan, we overhauled our defensive scheme in 2021. There were some growing pains. It got a lot better in 2022 and 2023. You go look at Oklahoma with Brent Venables. Disaster in 2022. Significant growing pains. Got much better in 2023. I think you could see a very similar storyline for Austin Armstrong going into year two, and it might even be a little bit more enhanced because Austin Armstrong was young. This Florida Gators defense was young. I think there's reason to believe that this Florida Gators defense can take a bigger step in the right direction than a lot of people give it credit. Want to get into a little bit about what Austin Armstrong might want to do to disrupt this Miami Hurricanes offense, then talk about the 5 most important players for the Florida Gators in this week one matchup. Now, before we get into it, as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and the Florida Gator fans. It's been a blast talking this game. We've talked about it extensively over the last couple of weeks. The amount of support y'all have shown, it's been amazing. We appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, whether you agree with the takes, whether you disagree with the takes. Light it up in the comments section. Would love to hear from you guys. And without further ado, let's get into Austin Armstrong first. And look, I think where you want to start is this Florida Gators defense last year just didn't play to the talent level that they had. You look up and down this Florida Gators roster and say, a lot of really, really talented pieces. Shamar James and Pup Howard, arguably one of the more talented linebacker duos that you see in the country. You look at TJ Searcy or Cam James or Kelby Collins, a very, very talented defensive front. You even look at the back end, Jordan Castell, one of, if not the most impressive true freshman safeties that we saw in 2023. I don't think the personnel was ever a problem in 2023. The execution was. And you kind of look at some of the numbers and say 8.5 yards per pass attempt given up. Those 124th in the country, weren't good against the run. The players have to play better. We're not going to try to expunge the personnel of this Florida Gators defense, but you go back to the 2023 film and you just say a lot of busted coverages, a lot of missed assignments, all stuff that, kind of makes sense when you're going year one with a defensive coordinator that wants to run a complicated defense with an extremely young defense from a personnel standpoint. So not only players getting better, but players understanding the system more, not blowing as many assignments. That is kind of what you're looking for this Florida Gators team. And again, you kind of put all of this into an equation of, all right, Austin Armstrong is going to give a lot of different looks to a quarterback that's new on the Miami Hurricanes. They're going to try to simulate a lot of different pressures. Is there a way that Florida can kind of maybe disrupt this Miami Hurricanes offense that has a lot of new faces coming in week one? I think that's a really big storyline. Now, to execute it, right? It's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to go out and make it happen. I want to talk about a few players that I think are the probably most important players to getting the job done. I want to start with Cam Jackson. Cam Jackson is going to be a massive piece in this game because one, it's no secret that the Miami Hurricanes are going to want to run the football. Like there's a reason Mario Cristobal has built the offensive line the way he has. There's a reason they went out and got Damian Martinez in the transfer portal. This is going to be a team that tries to establish the line of scrimmage and run the football. And Cam Jackson is going to be a guy that, is he going to fill the stat sheet up like potentially Joey Slackman, right? Or Kelby Collins? No, probably not. But Cam Jackson at 6'6", 342 pounds is going to be that two-gapping defensive lineman that can kind of hopefully, if you're Florida, get Miami behind the chains. We talked a very similar conversation with the importance of CJ Clark, but if you're Austin Armstrong, you are going to thrive in third and long situations. You got to force more turnovers. You got to get offenses in a little bit more uncomfortable spots than they were in 2023. We know Cam Ward's a guy that can make a lot of plays, but sometimes is loose with the football as well. If you can win on first and second down with a guy like Cam Jackson on the middle of the defensive line, force this Miami Hurricanes offense into some of those third and longs, and then you let Austin Armstrong get creative with some of these third down packages, that's probably number one what you're looking for. Because you go back to Austin Armstrong at Southern Miss, why he was, at least in my opinion, such a great defensive coordinator. He knew how to turn the ball over and create game-changing plays. 22 interceptions his last year at Southern Miss. Florida had 3 in 2023. We're one of the worst defenses in the country at forcing turnovers. I think it starts with putting offenses in a little bit more uncomfortable spots, and that starts by winning first and second down, stopping the run. Cam Jackson was second on the team in run stops last year. This is a big body that can do exactly what Florida wants on the inside of the defensive line. Second guy I want to talk about, specifically in relation to this Florida Gators defense, is Jordan Castell, who I thought was phenomenal as a true freshman for Florida. I think why Jordan Castell is so important. One, he is phenomenal as a run support safety. This is a guy that played over 170 snaps as a box safety last year, graded out as Florida's second best run stopper according to PFF. So you look at Jordan Castell and say 6'2", 220 pounds, kind of built a little bit like a linebacker. Can Jordan Castell be a presence on first and second down, stopping the run? That's one of those storylines that we're looking at. Only missed 10% of his tackles last year as a true freshman. But secondly, you look at Jordan Castell and say, hey, Austin Armstrong is going to want to bring pressure. And when you bring pressure, you have to have your safeties playing man coverage. One of the things that I love about Jordan Castell is he was a cornerback prospect, played a lot of cornerback at the high school level. And so he's very comfortable as a man coverage safety. And that's going to be really important. If you want to get Shamar James and Pup Howard involved in the pass rush, you got to have your safeties have the ability to play on islands, to play in man coverage, probably on a wide receiver like Xavier Restrepo, who we talked about as being the X factor for Miami. Jordan Castell might have some of that responsibility Saturday afternoon. I think that's a really important storyline to follow. Now, going to the offensive side of the football, quickly talk about some guys that, look, if Florida's going to win this football game, they need a massive game out of Trey Wilson. And why is Trey Wilson the guy I want to highlight? One, he's by far the most dynamic playmaker on this Florida Gators offense. But more importantly, his skill set specifically in this matchup is going to be huge. The biggest question mark we have with this Florida Gators offense is, are they going to be able to hold up in pass protection? This is a Miami Hurricanes pass rush that I think is going to be one of the best in the country. Obviously, Florida struggled mightily in the pass protection department in the 2023 season. You look at Trey Wilson and you say he's the guy that if you want to get what's the best way to mitigate a pass rush? Get the football out quick. Who's your wide receiver that is going to create separation awfully quick and then operate after the catch? It's Trey Wilson. So one, you're getting the football out quick. You're mitigating Miami's probably best skill set, and that's the pass rush. But I think more importantly, you're getting it to a wide receiver that is exceptional with the football in his hands. going up against the Miami Hurricanes secondary that has some questions. I don't even know if we know who are going to be the difference makers and contributors in the back end of that secondary, potentially some young cats. And so, can you make this young, inexperienced, green Miami Hurricane secondary tackle Trey Wilson in space? That is how I think you can create some explosive plays. We talk about the downfield passing attack for Florida. We've talked about it a lot in the offseason. I don't know if it's going to matter that much because I don't know if Miami's going to let you, with this pass rush, really push the ball down the field, but there's other ways you can create explosive plays. One of those is with Trey Wilson after the catch. Now, another guy you got to talk about, especially when you talk about mitigating a pass rush, is a run game. Obviously, Montrell Johnson probably not going to go. Jaden Baugh is the true freshman. I'm not saying Florida needs to run the football for 200 yards in this football game, but you got to have some sort of semblance of the run game on first and second down. You got to be able to stay ahead of the chains. You got to be able to avoid those third and long situations, because if you live in third and long against this Miami Hurricanes front seven, it's going to be a long day because that pass rush is going to be very good. Jaden Baugh, at 6'1", 230 pounds, can be kind of that running back that can keep you on schedule a little bit. So I'm looking at Jaden Baugh, who is a true freshman. There are some question marks there. We saw in the spring game that this kid is extremely capable. Can Jaden Baugh get it done in the run game? That's kind of what I'm thinking about in terms of most important players. And then finally, again, a kind of similar conversation we had with Miami was who's going to be the wide receiver to create that game-changing play. I mean, this is a game that there's a reason the spread is 2.5 points. It's going to be extremely competitive, and one or two of those difference-making, game-changing plays are probably going to decide the outcome of this football game. For Miami, we talked about Isaiah Horton. For Florida, I'm going to talk about two different wide receivers. One, Aiden Mizell, 6'2", 167. This kid runs a 10.65 in the 100-meter dash coming out of high school. He's big, he's long, he's fast. You look at Miami's secondary, specifically in the safety department, have some question marks about who are going to be the guys there. Can you hit one or two of these plays to a guy like Aiden Mizell, or maybe a guy like Tank Hawkins who runs a 10.45 in the 100-meter? That's kind of what you're looking for. I don't think Florida lives in the downfield passing attack in this matchup because of how good Miami Hurricanes front seven is. That being said, if you can hit one or two of these plays that kind of change the momentum and potentially the outcome of this football game, I think it's Aiden Mizell or Tank Hawkins who are coming up and making those plays. Those are my 5 most important players. Going to be a phenomenal football game Saturday afternoon. We'll close it down there. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.